El ICCF es una organización sin ánimo de lucro que lidera las alianzas multisectoriales de los sectores públicos y privados para enfrentar los retos mundiales en el uso y el manejo de capital natural entre las naciones, gobiernos, sociedad civil, empresas y ONGs en Colombia. El ICCF ha realizado varias visitas al Congreso de la República, con el fin de fomentar el liderazgo en los dirigentes, con el propósito de avanzar en estrategias ambientales y socialmente sostenibles para la conservación de los recursos naturales a través de alianzas públicas y privadas. Su fundador, David Barron, habla sobre cómo se creó la fundación, cuáles son los alcances que ha tenido a nivel global y cómo ésta ha empezado a establecerse en Colombia.
Bienvenidos a una nueva emisión de Opinión Mundial. Soy Alejandra Barrero y para el día de hoy tengo el honor de presentarles al fundador del ICCF, David Barron. Bienvenido.
Thank you.
¿Quién es David Barron y cómo transcurre su trayectoria profesional?
Alejandra, for having me today. I'm from South Carolina. I grew up in a family that was very active in politics over the years, and I joined up with Ronald Reagan as a young man. I was a youth leader and national chairman of the Young Republicans. I went to Washington with Reagan when he was elected in 1981. I spent a lot of time working on foreign policy issues. For a couple of years, I was on the White House Outreach Working Group on Central America, and then I was on the White House Ad Hoc Working Group on South Africa, which took me to Africa for the first time, and there I fell in love with wild animals and wild places and became involved in conservation and in the political sense of liaising with policymakers in Washington to support conservation causes. Subsequently, we've become involved in other parts of the world as well. So I sort of got into conservation by accident, but it was because of my interest in democracy and economic development, security, stability that led to me being involved with ICCF.
Señor Barron, ¿qué es el ICCF?
ICCF began as a secretariat supporting the leadership of the U.S. Congressional International Conservation Caucuses in our House and in our Senate. But now it's grown into a far wider collaboration of corporate and NGO partners and now partners in other parliaments and congresses around the world as well.
¿De dónde nace esta organización y cuál es su objetivo principal?
A group of congressmen in 2001 helped launch the Congo Basin Forest Partnership, which has been an enormous success, taking forest lands, tropical forest, out of timber leases and putting them into national parks and protected areas, but with economic development schemes around those protected areas. The congressman that undertook this came up with the idea of doing a lot more collaboration, bipartisan collaboration in the Congress to support other good conservation causes around the world. So the International Conservation Caucus in the House was born, and then later in the Senate. I was asked by some of the leaders in the Congress to help put together a brain trust to support them with educational programs so that they would be better informed to act on opportunities, to understand challenges, to understand successful models, and frankly to incorporate good natural resource management into all aspects of U.S. foreign policy and U.S. foreign assistance programs.
¿En qué partes del mundo encontramos esta organización?
ICCF's partner, the Conservation Council of Nations, now has 46 nation partners and the European Union and the African Union, and we hope soon to have the Organization of American States. We have caucuses in 10 countries now, Africa, Latin America, Europe, and we have programs in a number of countries that have requested technical support at policymaking level, but also at program implementation level on the ground. We are in Kenya and Tanzania and Zambia, but we're also in Mongolia and the Bahamas, and we will be in Colombia soon.
¿Cómo se estableció la fundación en nuestro país?
Well, first, a group of leaders in your house, actually principals in 5 parties, which I understand make up some 90% of the parliament, came together to form the CCC here. They engaged us. and asked for some technical support in replicating the model as it was established in the United States. Since then, they've been very active and now have recently established a strong foundational caucus in the Senate as well. And now the hard work begins, developing the programs, developing the missions, the brain trust here to support the leaders within your Congress.
¿Quiénes se pueden vincular a esta organización en Colombia?
Well, there's tremendous potential when political leaders from competing sectors work together, generally. But when it comes to the environment, when it comes to conservation, natural resource utilization, this is an opportunity for this multipartisan approach within your Congress to actually identify ways in which natural resources can be better exploited in Colombia in order to create jobs, grow the economy, but also to protect the long-term viability of the natural resource base. So here we have this model which transcends party, politics, constituencies, personal interest, to actually do what's in the best interest of the nation and thinking longer term, to unleash the power, the value of the natural resources, but without invading the foundational long-term. The CCC offers an opportunity for political leaders that span the political spectrum in Colombia to work together on what's in the best interest of the country as a whole. If the market value of natural resources can be realized by the nation to create jobs, to develop the economy, but in such a way that it actually preserves the long-term viability of wild places, of forest, of water, to minimize pollution in rivers, in the air. Here we have the unique model where a multipartisan collaboration can actually accomplish something that transcends party interest, constituency interest, personal interest, in such a way that they're doing what's in the best interest of the nation as a whole.
¿En qué consiste este emprendimiento multisectorial?
Well, that's an interesting question because sometimes environmentalists ask, why do you have corporations involved? Why are there energy companies? Why are there mining companies involved in this collaboration? And the answer is very important. It's because they're with us, they're part of the solution, or they're potentially just part of the problem. They're companies that are very aware of their responsibility in order to have the least footprint possible on the environment. But we need energy. We need natural resources. And yet we need the know-how in order to exploit those in the most opportunistic manner, in the most viable manner for the least impact on the environment long term. We have a strong NGO base, non-governmental organization base. A lot of conservation groups support us globally, in the United States and now in Colombia as well. And to have those conservation NGOs and those corporations working together, they can synthesize the recommendations that then become the valuable information that policymakers can utilize in order to make their policy decisions. And they know that there's a balance. It isn't just the environment, it isn't just profit. It actually becomes what's in the best interest of the Colombian people, the Colombian economy, but in such a way that we are friends of the environment in the process and that we do as little damage as possible. And ideally have the offsets and the other models designed and in place that are a net plus for the environment eventually.
¿Cuál es el papel que desempeña el Congreso de la República, especialmente la Cámara de Representantes con la Fundación?
Well, in two ways. To function as a secretariat in order to provide continuity and structure in communications, in bringing together the interested parties on a regular basis, setting up the communication system so that there's a good exchange of ideas, not just within the Colombian Congress, but also with other Congresses in the region and in the world. Cross-pollination being a very important part of this, because we can share ideas with legislators in other parts of the world that will allow us to learn from their experiences. But also as a brain trust. Again, bringing the private sector, the corporate community, together with the NGO community and leaders in the government community, creates an educational, institutional presence that allows review of challenges, or allows a longer-term approach to analyzing what works, what models have worked other places, but how they might apply in Colombia. What are Colombia's unique challenges? Where can we find the best and the brightest in order to support those? There's a lot of talent in Colombia. There are a lot of good partners already here, but there's a lot of talent around the world. And interestingly, it's important to the Caucasus and other countries, including the United States, that we learn from the Colombian experience as well. There's a lot that Colombia can teach other Caucasus, other parliamentary leaders in this region and in other continents as well.
¿Cuál es el balance después de la visita de congresistas colombianos a Washington?
Well, most importantly, it allowed the new leadership of the CCC here in Colombia to meet with leadership of the ICC in Washington, so that they now understand what the respective caucuses are prioritizing and establishing lines of communications that we can now expand on. But it's interesting, when we brought a Russian delegation to Washington, they left saying, now we understand Caucasus, now we understand America. It was a tremendous bridge in how our government functions, and a better understanding for our governmental leaders on how the Duma and the National Council in Russia functions. When the caucus was launched in Kenya, they call it the Parliamentary Conservation Caucus in Kenya, the PCCK. They immediately wanted to come to Washington to see how we function. So we brought their delegation to town, and it was more to see the functional aspects. In other words, how the brain trust of the foundation, the ICCF, supported the leaders in Congress, and how they might replicate that in the Kenya experiment. So this was a good first exchange between Colombia and Colombian political leaders and U.S. political leaders, but there will be many. This week we have U.S. congressional leaders that are visiting Colombia, and we'll bring together these leaders together with many of your parliamentary leaders to continue that dialogue.
¿Qué viene en la agenda del CCC en Colombia?
Well, generally, it is good natural resource management in Colombia for economic development, but also for preserving the natural heritage of the people of Colombia. The specific issues have to be chosen by the political leaders, the leaders in the CCC and in your Congress. We will assist by providing a lot of good ideas, opportunities, analyzing those they bring to us that they would like to have good, honest opinions on. But we won't pick that agenda, certainly not from Washington, not even in Bogota from the foundation itself. Those issues will be selected by the caucus leaders themselves. We'll make a lot of recommendations. They'll choose their priorities, and once they've chosen their priorities, then we will support their priorities. We will then become the foundational base in order to expand their desired programmatic policy developments to become reality.
Nuestros televidentes, ¿en dónde pueden encontrar más información acerca de la fundación?
Thank you for asking that, Alejandra. It's very easy. www.iccfcolombia.org. And from iccfcolombia.org, anyone who's looking at that site can then link into the ICCF Washington site and the Council of Nations global partner sites. And we invite people to do that.
Señor Barron, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en Opinión Mundial.
Thank you so much for having me.
Y a ustedes muchas gracias por acompañarnos en Opinión Mundial. Soy Alejandra Barrero y recuerden seguirnos en todas nuestras redes sociales. Hasta pronto.